Patricia George looked toward the chapel doors for the seventh time. They were still closed. Soft violin music drifted through the wedding hall, while nearly 100 guests waited in polished wooden seats. White roses lined the aisle. Crystal lights shimmered above the altar. Everything looked perfect, but Patricia could not stop staring at the empty space beside the entrance. Her mother was supposed to be part of this moment. Mama Helen could not travel from Nigeria because of her health, so she had recorded a private wedding blessing. A technician was supposed to deliver the tablet containing the video before the ceremony began. He was now 23 minutes late. Patricia. She turned toward her fiancé. Dr. Yoon. Hyun-soo stood beside her in an expensive black tuxedo. To everyone watching, he appeared patient and concerned. But Patricia noticed the tension in his jaw. "We cannot keep everyone waiting," he whispered. "My mother's message is on that tablet. We can watch it after the ceremony." Patricia's expression fell. "She cannot walk me down the aisle. She cannot sit in the front row. That recording is the only way she can be here." Before Hyun-soo could respond, his mother approached them. Mrs. Yoon wore a silver gown and a displeased expression. "This delay is becoming embarrassing," she said quietly. "Important people are waiting." Patricia glanced at the guests. Several senior doctors and hospital executives were checking their watches. Others whispered behind their programs. "It will only take a few more minutes," Patricia replied. Mrs. Yoon forced a smile. "A marriage cannot begin with everyone waiting for a delivery." Patricia looked directly at her. "It can wait for my mother." Hyun-soo gently touched Patricia's arm. "Let us begin. I promise we'll play the recording at the reception." Patricia wanted to believe him. Hyun-soo had supported her through the worst years of her life. When she lost her hospital position and nearly lost her nursing license, he had helped her rebuild her confidence. Today was supposed to mark the beginning of a better life. Yet something inside her resisted. Just as the wedding coordinator stepped forward to announce another delay, a young assistant hurried into the chapel. "Miss George." Patricia turned. "Your delivery has arrived." Relief spread across her face. "I knew it." She gathered the front of her wedding dress and hurried toward the entrance. Hyun-soo followed several steps behind her. The coordinator opened the chapel doors. Patricia stopped. There was no delivery motorcycle outside. A convoy of black luxury sedans had pulled up before the chapel. Security officers stood near the steps while employees bowed respectfully. The rear door of the final car opened. A tall Korean man stepped out, dressed in a perfectly tailored charcoal suit. He carried a rectangular gift wrapped in white paper and tied with a gold ribbon. Beside him stood a little Korean girl wearing a pale yellow dress. The child held an old hospital bracelet between her fingers. Whispers moved through the chapel. "Isn't that Kang Min-jae, the chairman of Myri Holdings? What is he doing here?" Patricia barely heard them. She was staring at the little girl. The child had grown taller. Her hair was longer, and her face was no longer pale from sickness. But Patricia remembered those eyes. "Sora." The girl's expression brightened. "Miss Patricia." Sora ran up the chapel steps and threw her arms around Patricia's waist. Patricia froze before slowly embracing her. Images she had spent 4 years trying to forget rushed back at once: a hospital room, a flashing monitor, and a child struggling to breathe. Patricia looked up at the billionaire. Kang Min-jae stopped several feet away. His calm expression could not conceal the emotion in his eyes. "I'm sorry," Patricia said. "I don't understand. I never invited you." "No," Min-jae replied. "You didn't." Behind Patricia, Hyun-soo stepped out of the chapel. The moment he saw Min-jae, the color left his face. Min-jae noticed. He held the gift out to Patricia. "But after what you did for my daughter, I couldn't allow you to marry this man without knowing the truth. The guests nearest the entrance became silent. Patricia did not accept the box. What truth? Sora released Patricia and raised the faded hospital bracelet. Then she pointed at Hyun-soo. Daddy, that's him. Hyun-soo's eyes widened. That's the doctor who blamed her. Patricia turned toward her fiancé. What is she talking about? Hyun-soo forced a nervous laugh. She was very young. She's probably confused. I'm not confused, Sora insisted. I remember your voice. Min-jae placed the gift in Patricia's trembling hands. Everything he took from you is inside that box. Patricia stared down at the gold ribbon. For years of unanswered questions suddenly stood before her. What had Hyun-soo done, and why had he chosen to marry the woman whose life he helped destroy? To understand why one of Korea's most powerful billionaires interrupted Patricia's wedding, we must go back 4 years, to the night she risked everything to save his daughter. At 25, Patricia George worked as a junior nurse at Hanul Medical Center in Seoul. She was far from Nigeria, often exhausted and constantly aware that one mistake could be used to confirm every doubt people had about her. Still, Patricia loved nursing. Her father had died when she was 16. During his final months, Patricia watched one compassionate nurse treat him like a person rather than a diagnosis. That kindness stayed with her. She wanted frightened patients to feel less alone. On a stormy Thursday night, an ambulance brought in 4-year-old Kang Sora. The little girl had collapsed during dinner. Her breathing was weak, her blood pressure was falling, and a red rash was spreading across her body. Patricia remained beside her while the emergency team worked. It hurts, Sora whispered. I know, Patricia said, holding her tiny hand. But you're not alone. Dr. Hyun-soo entered and took control of the case. He was already one of the hospital's most celebrated young surgeons, confident, respected, and rarely questioned. He reviewed Sora's chart and ordered several medications. Patricia prepared them, but one name on the chart made her pause. She checked Sora's wristband. Then she checked the electronic record. The child had a documented allergy to one of the prescribed medications. Patricia approached Hyun-soo immediately. Doctor, this medication is listed as a severe allergy. Hyun-soo barely looked at the screen. It was entered incorrectly. Administer it. But her previous reaction required resuscitation. I said the record is incorrect. Patricia looked at Sora. The child was struggling to breathe. Can we confirm with her father? There is no time. Hyun-soo took the syringe from the tray. Patricia stepped between him and the bed. Doctor, I cannot allow you to give her that medication. Every person in the room went still. Hyun-soo stared at her. You are a junior nurse. And she is allergic. You are delaying treatment. I am preventing another emergency. His face hardened. Move. Patricia did not. Instead, she called the hospital pharmacy from the bedside phone and requested confirmation. Hyun-soo ordered another nurse to continue, but that nurse hesitated. Seconds later, the pharmacist confirmed Patricia's fear. The allergy was genuine. Hyun-soo said nothing. He selected an alternative medication. Within minutes, Sora's breathing began to improve. Patricia stayed beside the child until her condition stabilized. Near dawn, Min-jae arrived from an overseas business trip. He hurried through the corridor and found his daughter sleeping peacefully. Before Patricia could explain what happened, Hyun-soo intercepted him. Your daughter suffered a severe allergic episode, he said. There was some confusion during treatment, but we corrected it. Min-jae looked through the glass at Patricia adjusting Sora's blanket. Who is she? A junior nurse, Hyun-soo replied. She failed to review the medication order properly. We will handle it internally. Inside the room, Patricia knew nothing about that conversation. By the following afternoon, she was summoned before the hospital board. Hyun-soo claimed Patricia had prepared the dangerous medication, and that he had stopped her moments before she administered it. The electronic allergy record had disappeared. Patricia's written incident report was missing. 2 nurses who witnessed the confrontation avoided her eyes. "I saved that child," Patricia told the board. Hyun-soo sat across from her with a calm expression. "You endangered her," he replied. Patricia was suspended immediately. Within weeks, the hospital dismissed her and submitted a complaint to the nursing council. Her license was not revoked, but the investigation remained on her professional record. No respected hospital would employ her. Patricia spent the next year working private shifts and caring for elderly patients. She sent most of her earnings home and told Mama Helen that everything was fine. It was during that difficult period that Hyun-soo reappeared. He apologized for how the board had treated her, claiming he had been unable to challenge the hospital executives. He recommended her for a rehabilitation clinic. He called when she felt discouraged. Slowly, he became the person she trusted most. 3 years later, he proposed. Patricia believed their love had grown from the ruins of the worst night of her life. Now, standing in her wedding dress with the chapel watching, she untied the gold ribbon. Inside the box lay her old nursing badge. Beneath it was the original incident report she had written 4 years earlier. Her signature was at the bottom. Attached to it was a pharmacy record confirming Sora's allergy, and security footage showing Hyun-soo removing documents from the nurse's station hours after the emergency. Patricia's hands began to shake. At the bottom of the box was a letter from Hanol Medical Center. The first sentence read, "We acknowledge that Nurse Patricia George acted correctly and prevented a potentially fatal medical error." Patricia slowly lifted her eyes. Hyun-soo stood at the end of the aisle, surrounded by the family and colleagues who had come to watch him marry her. "Patricia," he began, "I can explain." She removed the engagement ring from beneath her glove. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard it. "Did you fall in love with me?" Hyun-soo took one uncertain step forward. "Or did you decide to marry me because you were afraid I would remember what you did?" For several seconds, Dr. Yoon Hyun-soo said nothing. The wedding guests remained frozen in their seats. Patricia's old nursing badge rested inside the open gift box, beside the documents proving she had saved Sora's life. Hyun-soo looked around the chapel, as though searching for someone who could rescue him from the truth. Then he faced Patricia. "I did fall in love with you." Patricia stared at him. "That wasn't my question." Hyun-soo lowered his voice. "Can we discuss this somewhere private? 4 years ago, you destroyed my reputation in private. Today, the truth can be told in front of everyone." A murmur traveled through the chapel. Mrs. Yoon hurried toward them. "This is completely inappropriate," she said. "Whatever happened at the hospital has nothing to do with this wedding." Patricia looked at her in disbelief. "It has everything to do with this wedding." She held up the original incident report. "Your son allowed me to believe that I nearly killed a child. Then he entered my life pretending to help me recover from something he had done." Hyun-soo's composure began to crack. "It wasn't supposed to happen that way." "How was it supposed to happen?" He looked toward Min-jae before answering. "Sora's condition was deteriorating. I made a decision under pressure. You ordered a medication that could have killed her. I corrected the mistake." "No," Patricia said. "I stopped you." Hyun-soo's jaw tightened. "You challenged me in front of the entire emergency team. If the hospital discovered what happened, my career would have ended. So you ended mine instead." The words struck the chapel with more force than a shout. Hyun-soo lowered his eyes. Patricia remembered every job application that had been rejected, every suspicious look she received when employers read the complaint against her. Every night she cried silently after telling Mama Helen that she was doing well. Hyun-soo had watched her carry that pain. Worse, he had comforted her for it. "When did you first approach me?" Patricia asked. "Was it because you felt guilty?" Hyun-soo hesitated. "That was part of it." Patricia closed her eyes briefly. "And the job at the rehabilitation clinic. I recommended you because you deserved another chance. A chance you took away from me. I was trying to make things right, without admitting what you did." Hyun-soo stepped closer. "At first, I only wanted to know how much you remembered. I needed to be sure you weren't going to reopen the case." Gasps rose from several guests. Patricia's fingers tightened around the ring. Hyun-soo continued quickly. "But then I got to know you. Everything changed. I saw how kind you were. I saw how hard you worked. I fell in love with you." Tears gathered in Patricia's eyes, but her voice remained steady. "You investigated my memory before you asked about my heart. That isn't fair." "No, what you did to me wasn't fair." Mrs. Yoon reached for Patricia's hand. "People make mistakes. My son has taken care of you for 3 years." Patricia pulled away. "He did not take care of me. He kept me close enough to make sure I never discovered the truth." Mrs. Yoon's expression hardened. "Think carefully. Walking away now will humiliate both families." Patricia looked down at her white wedding dress. For months, she had imagined walking out of this chapel as Hyun-soo's wife. Now she understood that the man waiting for her at the altar had built their relationship on fear. She removed the engagement ring. Hyun-soo stared at it. "Patricia, don't do this." She placed the ring in his palm and closed his fingers around it. "You already did." Patricia reached behind her head and removed her veil. She folded it carefully before placing it on the nearest chair. Then she turned toward the wedding guests. "I'm sorry that you came here expecting a wedding." Her eyes moved to the empty seat reserved for Mama Helen. "But I would rather disappoint this room today than disappoint myself for the rest of my life." Patricia lifted the gift box and walked down the aisle. Sora reached for her hand. Patricia looked at Min-jae, uncertain. He gave a small nod. She took the child's hand, and together they left the chapel. Outside, Patricia released the breath she had been holding. The morning sky was bright, almost offensively beautiful. Traffic moved through the streets as if her entire future had not just collapsed. Sora remained close to her. "I'm sorry," the little girl whispered. Patricia looked down. "For what?" "For ruining your wedding." Patricia knelt despite the layers of fabric around her. "You did not ruin anything." "But you were crying." Patricia wiped her face. "Sometimes people cry when something painful ends. That doesn't mean it should have continued." Sora considered this before wrapping her arms around Patricia's neck. Min-jae stood several feet away, giving them space. When Patricia rose, she looked at him. "How did you find me?" Min-jae opened the car door, but Patricia did not move toward it. "I'm not going anywhere until you explain." He accepted her decision. 3 weeks ago, Sora found an old storybook in storage. Your name was written inside it. Patricia remembered the book. She had read it to Sora after the child awakened. She asked me to find the nurse who stayed with her that night. Min-jae continued. I contacted the hospital, but they claimed there was no nurse named Patricia assigned to Sora. Because they removed me from the record. Yes. Min-jae's expression tightened. That made me suspicious. I hired an independent medical investigator. He recovered archived pharmacy records and security footage. Your original report was discovered inside a former administrator's private files. Patricia looked at the box. Why bring it to my wedding? We intended to visit your home. Then Sora saw your photograph online beside Hyun-soo. Min-jae paused. She recognized his voice from that night. Patricia looked at Sora. You remembered after 4 years? The girl nodded. He kept saying you were only a nurse and that you had to obey him. Patricia's heart tightened. Sora had been sick and frightened, yet those words had remained with her. Min-jae continued. When I investigated Hyun-soo, I found your wedding announcement. I knew that if I waited another day, you would marry him without knowing why he first entered your life. Patricia searched his face. You could have exposed him publicly. I could have. Why didn't you? Because the decision to stop your wedding had to be yours. That answer unsettled Patricia, because it was exactly what she needed to hear. A black sedan stopped near them. Min-jae opened the rear door. Where would you like to go? Patricia looked down at her wedding dress. I don't know. For the first time that morning, there was nowhere she was expected to be. My mother, she whispered. I need to speak to my mother. Min-jae drove Patricia to her apartment. Sora sat beside her, holding her hand throughout the journey. When Patricia entered her living room, the tablet containing Mama Helen's recording was waiting on the table. The technician had delivered it to the apartment after failing to reach the wedding coordinator. Patricia stared at it for a long time before making a video call. Mama Helen answered in a bright gelly and a blue dress. My beautiful daughter, she exclaimed. Why are you calling? Shouldn't you be married by now? Patricia tried to speak, but her voice broke. Mama Helen's smile disappeared. What happened? The wedding didn't happen. Patricia told her everything. The medication, the missing report, and the reason Hyun-soo had approached her. Mama Helen listened without interrupting. When Patricia finished, she expected questions or anger. Instead, her mother said, Thank God you discovered the truth before you said your vows. Patricia began to cry. I loved him, Mama. I know. How could I not see what he was doing? Because you were loving him, not investigating him. Patricia covered her face. I feel foolish. You are not foolish because someone worked hard to deceive you. Mama Helen leaned closer to the camera. And you are not starting again from nothing. You are starting again with the truth. Those words stayed with Patricia. 2 days later, she met Min-jae at the office of his independent investigator. Her wedding dress had been replaced by a simple cream blouse and dark trousers. Her heartbreak remained, but it no longer controlled her steps. The investigator presented copies of every recovered document. We can submit this to the hospital and the nursing council, he explained. The evidence should be enough to reopen your case. Min-jae placed an additional folder before Patricia. What is this? She asked. A financial settlement proposal. Patricia opened it and froze. The amount was larger than anything she had ever earned. I don't want this. The hospital owes you compensation. I haven't even been cleared yet. My legal team can handle everything. Patricia closed the folder. No. Min-jae looked surprised. I'm not rejecting your evidence. I'm rejecting the idea that money can restore my name. This would protect you while the investigation continues. I have spent 4 years being treated like a nurse who needed someone important to speak for her. She pushed the folder toward him. I will not replace one powerful doctor with one powerful billionaire. The investigator lowered his eyes, but Min-jae did not appear offended. After a moment, he nodded. What do you need from me? The evidence. Nothing more. Then that is what you'll receive. Over the following weeks, Patricia petitioned the nursing council to reopen her case. She submitted the recovered report, the pharmacy confirmation, and the security recording. Meanwhile, Min-jae kept his promise. He did not contact the council or pressure the hospital. He made Sora available to provide a statement, but every decision remained Patricia's. Sora began visiting Patricia on weekends. They baked Nigerian puff-puff together. although Sora's first attempt produced shapes that resembled tiny stones. They laughed until Patricia's apartment felt warm again. Min-jae often arrived to collect his daughter and stayed for tea. He never asked Patricia to discuss the wedding. He never tried to turn her gratitude into affection. That quiet respect made him more difficult to ignore. One evening, Patricia noticed him standing near the window while Sora slept on the sofa. "You still blame yourself," Patricia said. Min-jae looked at her. "For what?" "For not being at the hospital that night." He was silent. "I was overseas," he finally admitted. "My wife had died the year before. I buried myself in work because I didn't know how to raise Sora alone. You came back. Almost too late." Patricia looked at the sleeping child. "But you came back." Their eyes met. Something gentle passed between them, but Patricia looked away first. She was not ready to place her heart in another man's hands. Then the first article appeared. Nurse abandons surgeon at altar after billionaire interrupts wedding. By afternoon, photographs of Patricia leaving the chapel with Min-jae and Sora were everywhere. Another headline followed. "Love, Revenge or Money? The Woman Between a Doctor and a Billionaire." Hyun-soo gave no formal interview, but an unnamed hospital source claimed Patricia had become emotionally unstable after losing her job. Online comments accused her of inventing the medical scandal to justify leaving Hyun-soo for a richer man. The rehabilitation clinic suspended Patricia until the matter was resolved. Then her phone rang. It was the nursing council. "Miss George," the official said, "new concerns have been raised regarding your conduct and your relationship with Mr. Kang Min-jae." Patricia stood slowly. "My relationship with him has nothing to do with the medical evidence. That will be determined at your hearing." "What hearing?" There was a short pause. "You are required to appear before the disciplinary board on Monday. If the allegations against you are sustained, your nursing license may be permanently revoked." The call ended. Patricia stared at the old nursing badge resting on her table. Hyun-soo had failed to make her his wife. Now, someone was trying to make sure she could never be a nurse again. Monday morning arrived with rain. Patricia stood outside the nursing council building, holding the old badge she had not worn in 4 years. Reporters waited near the entrance. "Miss George, did you leave Dr. Yoon for Kang Min-jae? Did the billionaire pay you to accuse your former fiancé? Are you romantically involved with him?" Patricia kept walking. None of them asked whether Sora could have died. None asked why her medical report had disappeared. Inside the building, Min-jae was waiting with Sora and the independent investigator. Patricia stopped when she saw them. "You came." Min-jae nodded. "But I will not enter unless you ask me to." She looked at the closed hearing room doors. "You could make one phone call and frighten everyone on that board." "I could. And you won't." "No." Patricia released a nervous breath. "Good." Sora stepped forward and handed Patricia a folded paper. It was a drawing of Patricia wearing a nurse's uniform and a bright red cape. Above her, Sora had written, "The nurse who was not afraid." Patricia smiled through the tears gathering in her eyes. "I was very afraid." Sora shook her head. "But you still helped me." Patricia hugged her before entering the hearing alone. 5 board members sat behind a long table. Hyun-soo and his lawyer were seated on the opposite side of the room. Hyun-soo looked exhausted, but Patricia felt no satisfaction. She had once planned an entire life with him. Now, they were strangers separated by a truth he had buried. The chairwoman opened the hearing. "Miss George, you claim Dr. Yoon prescribed medication to which the patient had a documented allergy." "Yes." "And you refused to follow his instruction?" "Yes." Hyun-soo's lawyer stood. "My client does not deny that there was confusion. However, Miss George was a junior nurse working in a stressful emergency. Her recollection may have been affected by fear. Patricia placed the pharmacy record before the board. This is not a recollection. The allergy was confirmed at 2:17 that morning. The lawyer lifted another document. Yet the medication was never administered. Because I stopped it. Or because Dr. Yoon corrected the order himself. Patricia looked at Hyun-soo. Then why did my report disappear? No one answered. The security footage was played next. On the screen, Hyun-soo entered the nurse's station after the emergency. He opened the incident report drawer and removed a folder. His lawyer argued that he had been collecting confidential documents for the hospital administrator. Then Hyun-soo was invited to speak. He stood slowly. Nurse George misunderstood my instructions, he said. When she confronted me, I reviewed the medication and changed it. I never intended for her to lose her job. Patricia stared at him. You sat before the hospital board and said I prepared the medication. I was advised to protect the hospital. You signed the complaint against my license. I was under pressure. And when that pressure ended, you spent 3 years looking into my eyes without telling me the truth. Hyun-soo's voice softened. I loved you. Patricia shook her head. Love does not require someone else to remain confused so that you can feel safe. The chairwoman called for a short recess. Before anyone could leave, the hearing room doors opened. A woman in a dark blue nurse's uniform entered. Patricia recognized her immediately. Nurse Choi. Nurse Choi had been in the emergency room 4 years earlier. She had witnessed Patricia challenge Hyun-soo, but during the original investigation, she claimed she could not remember what happened. Nurse Choi approached the board. I need to give a statement. Hyun-soo's lawyer objected, but the chairwoman allowed her to continue. Nurse Choi's hands trembled. Patricia was telling the truth. She found the allergy. She stopped Dr. Yoon from administering the medication. Patricia could barely breathe. Why didn't you say this 4 years ago? A board member asked. Because the hospital administrator threatened to dismiss everyone on the night shift. My husband had just lost his job. I had 2 children. Nurse Choi looked at Patricia. I told myself that remaining silent was how I protected my family. But every time I heard Patricia had been rejected for another position, I knew what my silence was costing her. She placed an old mobile phone on the table. This contains a message Dr. Yoon sent me after the incident. The recording was played. Hyun-soo's voice filled the room. The official report will state that Nurse George misread the order. Anyone who contradicts that report will be treated as responsible for the error. The room fell silent. Hyun-soo lowered his head. For the first time, he had no explanation. The board deliberated for nearly 2 hours. Patricia waited alone in the corridor. Min-jae sat several seats away, close enough to support her, but far enough to honor the boundary she had drawn. Finally, the doors opened. The chairwoman invited everyone back inside. After reviewing the recovered documents, pharmacy records, security footage, and witness testimony, this council finds that Nurse Patricia George acted correctly. Patricia gripped the edge of her chair. The complaint against her was based on falsified information. It is hereby removed from her professional record. Her nursing license remains valid and unrestricted. Patricia closed her eyes. For years of shame seemed to leave her body in one breath. The chairwoman continued. This council will refer Dr. Yoon Hyun-soo's conduct for a separate disciplinary investigation. Hyun-soo's hospital privileges were suspended that afternoon. Hanol Medical Center announced an independent investigation into the administrators who helped conceal the mistake. Outside the building, the reporters surged forward. Min-jae's security team prepared to surround Patricia, but she raised her hand. I will speak for myself. Min-jae stepped back. Patricia faced the cameras. 4 years ago, I was punished because I questioned a more powerful person. Today, evidence proved that questioning him saved a child's life. She held up her restored badge. This is not only about me. Nurses protect patients when they observe, think, and speak. No medical worker should lose a career for refusing an unsafe instruction. A reporter called out, "Are you and Kang Min-jae in a relationship?" Patricia looked toward Min-jae. "No. Mr. Kang gave me evidence. He did not, by my silence, direct my decisions or fight my battle for me." She paused. "He simply made sure I was allowed to fight fairly." Weeks later, Hanul Medical Center offered Patricia her former position and a financial settlement. She accepted the compensation but declined the job. Instead, she used part of the settlement to establish the George Patient Safety Center, where nurses could receive emergency response training and confidential support when challenging unsafe medical decisions. Min-jae offered to fund the entire project. Patricia refused. He returned the next day with a different proposal. A scholarship, he explained, for immigrant nurses who cannot afford the training. Your center controls it. My company receives no ownership and no authority. Patricia examined the agreement carefully. You've learned. I had a demanding teacher. She smiled and signed it. As the center took shape, Patricia and Sora became almost inseparable. Sora filled Patricia's office with drawings. She learned to make puff puff properly and proudly corrected Min-jae whenever he pronounced Nigerian words badly. Min-jae changed too. He stopped hiding inside work. He attended Sora's school events, left the office before midnight, and learned that being present mattered more than solving every problem. Patricia saw the tenderness beneath his reserved exterior, but she also noticed how easily Sora had begun imagining them as a family. One evening, Patricia asked Min-jae to speak privately. Sora is becoming attached to me. I know. I love spending time with her, but I don't want her gratitude to become a reason we rush into something. Min-jae was quiet before answering. My daughter does not owe you her love because you saved her. He looked directly at Patricia. And you do not owe me yours because I found the evidence. Then what is happening between us? Something I hope is real. Patricia's heart beat faster. But if you are not ready, he continued, I will wait. And if you never become ready, I will respect that. For the first time, Min-jae was not offering Patricia protection, money, or an answer. He was offering her a choice. The George Patient Safety Center opened 1 month later. Mama Helen watched the ceremony through a large screen, dressed proudly in green and gold. Nurse Choi attended with her family. Several young nurses, who had once been afraid to speak, filled the training hall. After Patricia cut the ribbon, Sora appeared carrying a small wrapped box. Min-jae stood beside her. Patricia folded her arms playfully. Another gift? Were you invited this time? Min-jae reached into his pocket and produced a card decorated with uneven hearts and 3 smiling figures. Sora had written, Daddy is invited because I said so. Patricia laughed. That looks official. She opened the gift. Inside was her restored nursing badge, polished and placed in a new velvet case. Beneath it was a simple note. You saved Sora's life. Then you reminded us both how to live. Patricia looked up at Min-jae. I would like to take you to dinner, he said. Not as Sora's father. Not as the man who interrupted your wedding. And not as someone trying to rescue you. Then who are you asking as? A man who has fallen in love with you. Patricia glanced at Sora, who was pretending not to listen. Then she returned her attention to Min-jae. Yes. His serious expression finally softened. But, Patricia added, no convoys. 1 car. No security surrounding the restaurant. 2 guards across the street. 1. Min-jae smiled. Agreed. Sora ran between them and took both their hands. For the first time in 4 years, Patricia was not being led by fear, guilt, or another person's secret. She was choosing what came next. If this emotional Afro-Korean story touched your heart, like the video, share it with someone who believes the truth deserves to be heard, and subscribe for more powerful stories about love, family, and second chances. Across the street, a dark car remained parked beneath the trees. Inside, an unfamiliar woman watched Patricia, Min-jae, and Sora leave the center together. On her lap were 2 photographs. The first showed Patricia outside the nursing council. The second was much older. It showed Sora's late mother standing in a hospital corridor beside Dr. Yoon Hyun-soo. The woman lifted her phone and made a call. Kang Min-jae has finally found the nurse, she said. A man's voice answered. Does Patricia remember anything? Not yet. The woman looked at the old photograph again. But if she remembers what happened that night, Hyun-soo's medical error will be the least of our problems. She watched Sora climb into Min-jae's car. He still believes his wife died from natural complications. There was a long silence on the other end. Then the woman spoke her final words. Make sure he never learns the truth. The call ended, and as Min-jae's car disappeared into the Seoul traffic, Patricia had no idea that the wedding gift which restored her life had also reopened the secret behind another woman's death.